Hi and welcome to another Coffee with Soul. I'm Jordan, the Soul Diva, and for anyone that doesn't know me, I work with women to reclaim their worth, learn to love themselves fiercely so they can live their boldest life. And today I am joined by Rosaria Gracia, or should I say Dr. Rosaria
Well,
Gracia.
thank you very much. Thank you very much.
And I am going to let Rosaria introduce herself in a second, but I am very privileged she said yes to joining me. And out of everybody I've spoken to so far, Rosaria is somebody I actually do know in real life. And I've worked out we've known each other for about 14 years.
Gosh, easily. But yeah, that's a
Yes,
long time.
Yeah, and Rosaria was my very first Samba teacher when I came to a little community hall on a dark night, not knowing what to expect, and walked away absolutely loving Samba and hanging out there for quite a while since.
Yeah.
So, Rosaria, over to you.
Well, my name is Rosaria, and I have been living in the UK for almost 3 decades now. I'm originally from Cordoba, from the south of Spain, and yeah, I'm a dance artist. I'm an ethnochoreologist in the sense that I really integrate the traditions into the dances that I dance and I teach. I like really knowing the stories and what makes dances what they are. From, whether we are talking about folkloric dances, international dances, social dances, whatever it is, I like going back to the roots to then see how we can evolve them in a way. And I work loads with people of all ages, but of the last perhaps 15, 20 years, I'm mostly working with adults. And adults, I say it in a flexible way, from 20s to 100. So I do open sessions, so I do sessions in senior housing. I've done some work in hospitals as well, rehabilitation, work with people with dementia and Parkinson's, people with learning disabilities. Very lately, it's funny how sometimes waves come in with the participants that are coming to my sessions. But over the last few years, there have been a quite increase of people with fibromyalgia, ME, CFS that have come to my session. And in a way, unavoidable, I would say, just because everybody is so subject to it, people that are diagnosed or not diagnosed with mental health issues. But normally I like my sessions to be as mixed as possible. So it's impossible to label anybody. So it just really is a supportive environment. Everybody's really lovely. And they are there for the dance and for the music. So that's my dance movement background, as it were. And I'm also an academic. So I work for the Open University, and I work in the Department of Social Sciences, STEM, and which is science, technology, and also health and social care. So I've got a little bit of a portfolio there. So
Yeah, I wouldn't have dared try to introduce you.
No, I didn't even know what can I say. Well, I don't know.
The vastness. I think I always remember when I was doing my therapeutic arts training, was about the same time that you were doing, was Finding Your Compass, wasn't it? The project
yes.
around the mental health.
Yeah.
And that really stood out for me as something. But I think for me, within, even within the coaching, using creative arts, but definitely the movement and the body, I think is so important. There's been the research up till recently, certainly around mental health and including trauma, has been a lot of mind focus, and it's now really becoming into how we hold it in the body, that mind body connection, as you were talking about with, the ME, CFS, all of those things. And yeah, it's just so important.
Really is, and I think it's also a very, it's vast. It's very cultural as well. So I think that there is a tendency for Western countries specifically to find a brain solution to everything. Meaning it has to be intellectual, it has to be rational, which, yes, is, we cannot say that that is not true, but there are other things that we cannot actually explain through our own academic or kind of intellectual understanding of the situation. And there are some things that are just in our bodies. We get that even when we get cold, and we know some people get in the shoulders, some people get in the lower back, and then it's just being cold or getting a drift or whatever, and then all of a sudden you've got lower back pain, and that's because of a physical reaction to an external circumstance, and that's just being cold, let alone whether you have been feeling threatened, or you have been, you are surrounded by people that you are not completely sure about. Our bodies react to that, from our eyebrows to our toes. It just, there is a physical reaction. So if we are to kind of support people to, I suppose, to recover from those situations and blossom, really, you need to really pay attention to everything. It's not just physical, it's intellectual, but it's also in terms of the mindset, which I think that sometimes goes beyond intellectual, because there are some things that you can think about and then you can, on paper I understand it, but there is something really, I want to say spiritual comes to me, but it's dodgy, because the spiritual has lots of different connotations, but there is something that is at this spirit level, that is like the soul. If people have been feeling discriminated against or whatever it is, that's something that you feel in your body, but there's something that is even more internal. It's your way of thinking, your way of behaving, where you put yourself, where you don't put yourself. So it's far more complex. So yes, I think that a kind of biomedical way of looking at symptoms is important, but you need to put the psychological and the social there too, because we are complex beings. It would be really nice if everybody's like completely, like little box, packed, tick, 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 I can sort you, unfortunately.
which unfortunately is, as you said, in the Western world, certainly here in the UK, is kind of the hope, isn't it? You fit in this box, and that isn't always the case. It depends how it, I guess, plays out, for want of a better word, for that person, because it's, as you said, it's not just what they're experiencing, it's then where they are within their family system and their sort of local systems, and then the societal systems. And I was taken, actually, when you were talking about Western culture, and what came to mind for me was more of a shamanic approach, and certainly when you're talking trauma, and how they see that, which is from a soul level. They see this as that you've lost part of yourself, and actually the response to that is a community response, a community being with you while you go through that process, which is very different to the individualized, very mind-based approach that we have had here. I do think we are slowly changing. And I know one of the things that you're involved in is the social prescribing. So I think we are slowly changing into how we approach this, but it's a slow change. I think that the UK, and particularly some regions, are more advanced than others. I mean, Wales has loads of projects in place. I mean, they are really, ahead of the game in terms of, and I think Scotland too, but I'm not so familiar with their system. But here in the southeast of England, Brighton is quite out there, and I've been having conversations with quite a few people that are based in Switzerland and Amsterdam, and they were kind of following a little bit of the
the pattern of what we were doing at HERA, which is the Healing and Expressive Recovery Arts project as part of the Brighton Health Wellbeing Centre. Although we are, these is now presenting a few more surgeries around Brighton and Hope, but that's where it started. So yeah, there is a whole program that is very much based around creativity and conventional medicine. So normally they refer people to us, either the link workers or the health champions or the doctors or the nurses refer people to us, that they may be going through a conventional approach and it's not really working, or they need something complementary, or they need to come out of the conventional approach because it's not of service to them anymore. So we provide dance and movement, which is what I do, and another colleague of mine, Rachel, she does a different approach as well to dance. So it's a little bit more kind of technique based in a way, but in a really welcoming, and you don't need to be a professional dancer, but she does tap and modern and so forth. I'm more international dancers, but then dances through different eras, and I integrate gyrokinesis, which is a body system that I'm also a trainer in, which is a combination between yoga Pilates. So it's far more gentle. I can really modify it to different people, different needs. We could do sitting down, we could do it standing up, and it's beneficial both ways, really. Then we've got creative writing, we've got reading, we've got art projects, photography. What else? I don't want to leave anybody behind. I'm just trying to think about singing. So yeah, and it's particularly during the pandemic, it has been quite interesting because we were all providing sessions online. Some of them are working with young people, some of them are working with the adults, some of them are mixed. And it has been great to see them, so we could check on them in a way and provide that support. So that has been really lovely, and that continues. That program continues, and also the program of the Brighton Hope City Council with the healthy lifestyle teams. They have really been very flexible. I also work with them, and providing lots of sessions online. Now we are doing a hybrid, 1 day a week, so people can still do it online, but some people are coming to Hangleton to do it face to face. So, there are services that they have their heart in the right place, and they have the knowledge, and they want to deploy it because they know that people need support in different ways. But one of the things that was just coming up to me when you were talking about the trauma side of it, and that idea of we need to spend time with ourselves and really kind of nurturing ourselves. I think something that happens sometimes is, and this is an impression, I don't know whether I can articulate it specifically, but if we are in a society which is mostly around the individual, if we are making the shift to taking time for ourselves, sometimes that taking time for ourselves is not coming from a nurturing place, and it's coming from a place of reaction, and sometimes even passive aggressive. And that is not good for the person that is trying to take care of themselves, not for the people around them. And I think that we need to be very careful, because sometimes we are into this, you take time for yourself. Absolutely. It's like that thing in the plane, put the mask on you before helping anybody else.
Absolutely.
But you're putting the mask because you are part of a whole, not because you want to go into your cave and forget about everybody else. So it's a fine line. It's a very fine line, but in a society which is very much rooted into individualism, that line sways too much to the individual wanting to forget about everybody else. And there needs to be a middle ground in there. It's like, that doesn't mean that you don't take time off. You can, but it's a fine line. It's a time off, but then we are social animals. So it's that kind of gentle integration and find it in a way that is good for you, but good for the people around you and so forth. So it's complex because, I just feel that sometimes it's, again, we love extremes.
No, absolutely.
And extremes don't work because it's very much what you are trying to escape from. and then you're going into the other side. It's just, so that's why it's such a hard work, because just like
Yeah.
it's so hard. It's so hard. But I think it's worth thinking about it, because if we get that, it's likely right. My goodness, we will live in such a nicer, nurturing place, really.
Well, and I think you were talking about the extremes. I think, unfortunately, in a lot of ways, the society and the Western culture is set up around busyness, and you work hard, and it's almost, the number of people I've talked to that are almost ashamed to take the time to sit and read a book. It's like, well, I must be doing something at weekends, and I must be showing something. And it's like, it's okay to stop. And I think if the one thing, obviously, the last couple of years has shown us that the pace that so many of us, and I include myself in this before I had to slow down, were running at is not a pace that our bodies are intended to run at 100% of the time. And I think as part of that as well, where you were talking about taking time for ourselves, that taking time for ourselves can be social.
Yeah.
It's that, actually, where are you prioritizing you in your routine, in your day, not even your week?
Yeah.
Where's your moment in your day? And if you're prioritizing is meeting a friend for coffee,
Yeah.
or going for the walk on the beach, but sharing that with others, not necessarily on your own,
Yeah.
that's still the taking the time. So exactly what you're saying, it's not about you have to isolate, and I was about to say, and you have to be with your feelings. And I'm very aware that as I went to say that, there's a bit of this, with all this positive thinking that's come out as well, we can also end up bypassing so much. So I'm not advocating for you've got to feel your feelings and get stuck there, because that's not healthy for anybody. But it's also not as healthy to start to feel your feelings and go, oh, I must be positive and I have to think positive, and actually you're in bypassing and avoidance. And I think for any of us, without support on, well, what's right for me? How do I feel into those feelings in a safe way and in a comfortable way? How do I express them in a safe way and a comfortable way? How much do I want to be out with people? How much is right for me to be on my own to do that? And I think this does kind of bring us back around to creativity and the arts, that
Yeah.
actually they are so important and supportive in being able to do that, in being able to feel into your body, in being able to express those emotions.
And also that there is not one formula. So what I'm really aware of is that, someone sent me a link the other day, and actually I did it. It's just the personality traits, and how important it's actually to recognize people. Some people are very extrovert, some people are introvert, some people are in between. And particularly this society loves extroverts. But it's like, what about the introverts? Just leave them alone. Actually, in many instances, they are far healthier because they are not pushing. I mean, there are other ways of pushing. We cannot generalize, but you just really appreciate everybody for who they are. And I think that the arts really allow that, because you can enjoy it, how it suits you. So there are some, in particular in dance and movement, there will be some people that are really out there to do lots of performing and, just mixing with lots of people, big groups, whatever it is. Some people just want to go to a dance class or movement class or a flash mob or just to the disco, whatever, to have a dance and be quiet. It's not about that. It's not, there isn't a spectrum. You can deep in and out of that spectrum of creativity as much or as little as you want, and it will change. So some days you feel like, right, I feel like a real show off and I'm just going to go for it. And some days it's like, I just want to watch a nice film, or I want to read a book, or I just want to write in my journal, or I want to do a scribble, or I want, you know, whatever. But I think it's important because it's another release. And what is important as well is that it could be very short. So, you know, even people that are doing drawings, you can just do, I call it visual gibberish in a way. So it just take your pencils and just draw whatever. 3 minutes, put it on paper and move on. You know, you can look at it, you can analyze it or not. Just leave it in there. That was like, boom, that's the rant of the last 5 minutes, and off I go and I do something else. And the other thing about the feelings, I think that, again, it goes very much with that introspection and how far we go with that. I think that there is an element of integrity that we need to explore, both internally and externally. So if we go through a bad patch, I think it's really important to pay attention to that. But again, not going into a rut and just feeling, oh, I'm just going, just watch it. What is this about? And yeah, in those moments, you probably need to be on your own because you need the space. But then what do you do with it? You know, if you are milking it, is that making you happy? Probably not. And probably it will be reproducing the situation with the people around you. And again, this may not happen one day. You know, it may be probably the 100th time that you have gone through the same thing that is like, this is again. And then you just need to question it. And the more we understand ourselves and our triggers, and triggers can be people in front of the queue. You know, it doesn't need to be a major thing, but it can be. And we don't know. So it just, things trigger different people in different ways because different people have different stories and histories. Yeah. But I think it's really important to, again, is find the measure of how far down we go to understand a particular feeling and how that materializes. But then I cannot help it. I'm a real doer. So what? Okay, what do I do with this? Yeah. Just feeling miserable. And sometimes I feel, well, actually, I want to feel miserable. Thank you very much. Just don't tell me anything for the next half an hour. I'm going to be. Yes, but then what do you do? If you don't make the shift, it can create other issues. So, yeah. And the other thing, what you were saying, I think it was about feeling the space to express yourself in a way. I think it's really important to really talk to people and say to people, you know what, when, for example, I'm just thinking, if you invite me to something and I keep saying no, please don't take it personally. It's because I need time or whatever. So the person doesn't feel rejected and you don't feel left out because they, understandably, they don't call you anymore because you're always saying, no, I cannot. But it just really kind of finding that understanding so that the people that are closer to you or the people that you relate to more often than not, they understand that that's how you are. And that's okay. You know, different people offer different things. So that's why I say it takes such a long time, because I think that we are in this thing of likes, friends, followers. I've got 7,000. It's just like, well, those people, you are not going to explain to in your Instagram, oh, by the way, if you say this to me and no, it would be relevant to the people that you relate to on a daily basis, or people that you work with, people that basically your reaction can affect. Yeah. And their reaction can affect you. So, but yeah, I think that finding our voice in explaining that and then materialize it in whatever shape or form. It could be through the arts, or it could be, yeah, just in any way. You know, it could be even people writing it down. If they are word driven, just write it down and just really put it out there. Or it could be, I don't know, whatever shape or form it takes. But I think that those are tools there for us, really, to utilize.
Absolutely. And a few things came to mind as you were talking actually there. The first one was where you were talking about it, how quick you can do things. And I was just thinking, the young people I used to work with, it was always, you know, you need to move. At times you need to move your body, especially when you're feeling that low.
Yeah.
And it was having that exact conversation. I'm not telling you to go out and run 5 miles, but put one song on. Move your body for one song. That's in. If you want to keep going, perfect. But if that's all you can do, that's exactly as you were saying. It's about 3 minutes. You've moved. You've done it.
Yeah.
Something has shifted, whether you feel it or not. Something would have shifted just by moving.
Yeah.
And I think alongside that, and actually alongside how long we do things, and I'm just sharing from myself.
Yeah.
As you know, I've done samba performances and performed in front of thousands, and in my old jobs, and even here, showing up. And I think there's that perception, and I remember everyone thinking, oh, you're an extrovert, and that's not how I see myself at all. I call myself an ambivert, in that there are moments that I can be out there and full on, and I love that. But I actually need time on my own after that to recover. I need time out and I need to withdraw, and I just can't keep going at that level. And I remember for years, and certainly when I was younger, that there was that FOMO, that fear of missing out because everyone else was carrying on, and that, they might be going and partying, or they might be going to something else. And I was like, I don't have the energy. I just need to take some space. And now as I'm older, that's absolutely fine. I know this about myself and I understand that. But actually, for a long time, I struggled with that, because it was like, well, I should be able to keep going and I should be part of this, and all those things we use to beat ourselves up. And actually, we need that self-compassion coming back.
Yeah. It's interesting when you were talking about being like all out there. It just really, this image of a pulsation is a little bit like the jellyfish.
Yes.
I think that sometimes the more you put up there, the more you need to retract. And that's how you would get the balance. And I think that there are lots of people, I'm very much like that. I mean, I'm at it on the screen, face to face, performing. When I'm at home, I'm very private, she says from her living room. But, I really need time to come to me and just really spending. Sometimes it's not very long, but it's enough. I need that time to recharge, because otherwise you can just really feel that you're running on dry. And I think it's like everything. The more you give, the more you need. It's just like that. There are some people that are always on the go, but then perhaps of giving their presence is different. It's a different energy. They are different people, so they can keep like that, and they will have a bit of time off, and then that's fine too. But you just finding that balance, and the recognition that that's okay, and the letting go. I think that sometimes I found myself, particularly when I was younger, I was saying, I really need to go to that. I really need to go. And actually, I didn't have that much good time for that particular event or that particular thing that I was forced to go to in my head because I needed to go. I think that sometimes we just need to listen to ourselves. And we miss one thing, but there will be others. And, hopefully, in the most cases. But I think that just really allow ourselves to have that recovery time is really important, because otherwise, we just run dry.
Yeah.
And that's not healthy, I don't think.
And I think, while you were talking about the being busy, and I guess this comes back to feeling our feelings. If you're somebody who's just naturally busy, of course, there's no criticism and no judgment. But if you're being busy to stop yourself feeling, because the moment you stop, actually whatever it is you're trying to not feel starts to come up. So it's just another form of numbing out, another form of avoiding. And I think actually something you said a little while ago made me think as well, that of course there are times we need to be on our own. you know, when you're having those off days, you need to be on your own. But I think not just as women, men and women, there's been this real push of when you're in that space, you don't reach out, you know, whether it's you don't air your dirty laundry in public, or whether you're not worthy of reaching out, whatever the stories are that we've created for ourselves and society has created for us. And actually, it's also that really vulnerable space. So being able to reach out in that vulnerable space. And I think it's something I've had to learn, that actually it's okay in those times to reach out and show up as whatever that person is, whoever that person looks like, but within a safe community.
Yeah.
So within I mean, for me, it's communities of women, but it hasn't always been that way. You know, I used to have much more mixed spaces.
Yeah.
But having those spaces where I can, you know, put up a video or do a live or shout to a friend or whatever it might look like, going, look, I'm actually really struggling today and I don't know what I need. And actually sometimes it's just somebody else literally being there, not doing anything, not asking questions, not offering advice, just. But again, we're back to knowing ourselves enough to know, actually, is this a genuine, I want to hide under the duvet and avoid the world and I will feel better for doing it? Or am I hiding under the duvet, avoiding the world because actually I really want to do something different and I don't know how people will respond?
Yeah. And I think that to be able to articulate that, it takes time. Absolutely. And if people, and they support. I mean, I'm just thinking, well, we are lucky that in some schools there is more conversation about this emotional intelligence, but it still is, you know, it's not completely there everywhere. And I think if children actually grow up just really feeling like that and being able to really recognize difference in themselves and others, and that difference doesn't need to be any diagnosis, although it could be, but it's just difference in terms of, no, I don't like that. And I'm not, you know, it's all right. I don't need to follow. I like this though. So, you know, it just this pressure. I was just thinking, there was a project, I was just talking to a few people, and it's always this difference between boys and girls, you know, at school, and how they are talked to and talked with, and the expectations. And there are still, you know, it's even completely subconscious expectations of both genders if we are looking at the binary, let alone really looking at all the different genders that we can talk about and all the variations. But even just looking at the binary that is supposed to be straightforward and is nothing like, that is really difficult. It's really difficult because there is still this understanding that girls are like this and male are like that. And one of the things that I'm more in connection with boys, so I could feel this, that there's a new wave of very sensitive young boys that really get it. However, I've heard that sometimes they really are up against, because there is this wave of girls to be really empowered, which I completely endorse and understand. But at the same time, there is no recognition of perhaps this more vulnerable place where boys can go to. So there is a clash. I mean, it's a competition then. So it's like, who is the strongest? You know, it's just, again, it's this kind of the jellyfish, the kind of the balance between the two. And again, you see that in the arts lots and lots. You can see that in literature. There are more and more books that are coming up for that, with children's books and so forth. And I think it's beautiful that that is the case. But I think that that is the job of grown-ups now. It's not for them. We need to allow them to feel that space. It's not for them to do that job. And I think that in all these calls about teach your daughter to be strong, I think is teach your son that it's okay to be vulnerable, and they are not going to be criticized for it. Because I've heard, this is the other thing, it's really interesting, and this could come in like boom, like a bomb. But my okay, I'm putting into context. My PhD was on accessibility and gender. So, there are issues, and I finished it many years ago, but some of the topics are still are there. And the topic was very much rooted into multimedia products. So it's like whether there is an integration of even gender stereotypes without even knowing.
Mm.
And one of the things that it was really shocking for me then, it shouldn't be, but it was, is that some of the more rooted stereotypes were actually endorsed by women.
Yeah.
And you would expect otherwise. And gosh, no, we are definitely in a patriarchal society, and there is no other.
Oh, yes.
There is no other. That's true. But we have been so successful in that patriarchal society that even there are lots of women that are actually endorsing those values.
Yeah.
And putting them through. So it's just, again, this is another conversation, another topic, but I think it's really important if we are trying to facilitate a change. Again, is this awareness of we are going into bias. Conscious bias is really our recognition of conscious bias and subconscious bias of everything, gender, race, absolutely everything.
Absolutely.
And because it's not that we need to check on ourselves like every 2 seconds, but we are around people that are coming from different standpoints. So we have to actually to be able to communicate and be respectful, and we will go wrong. Everybody, it's all part of the process, and we have been like this for what century. I mean, it's not something that is going to change, but it's just going to that idea of understanding vulnerability and understanding different standpoints and understanding different people, that we all need to do something for it. And when we are talking about children, grown-ups are the ones that have to do the job, because they are the ones that children are learning from, whoever they are.
Yeah. But it's also
parents, carers, or
I was just going to say, it's also grown-ups having that insight into themselves then.
That's what I mean. That's what I meant. That is I mean, the children obviously, and it would be lovely if it's integrated in the curriculum, but I think it's very much for the adults to actually think about that, even for anything, for the sake of the generations that are coming.
Well, and I was thinking, for fear of getting too far into the patriarchy, and let's bring it back a little bit, but I mean, you only have to look online and see it's women calling out women. It's women calling out women on how they look and who they are. And it's also women calling out men on, the type of man that they might want, or, the language of man up that's still around, and all of this. And actually, it took me to the thought of when I was working with the veterans, and quite often, my role would be the first time they'd come in to seek support for mental health. And quite a few of them ended up in tears in that first session, because it was probably the first time that they'd expressed their story in that way and had somebody listen, and non-judgmentally, and all of those things. And I think almost every single one of them said, they apologized for the tears, and they all said, oh, I bet it's the first time. And it's like, no, this is what every single one of you does. And I am focusing on the men instead of the women in this one. This is what every single one of you does in this room, and it's fine. And this is the space for you to start unpicking it, and start unpicking your experiences. And actually, when you start looking at those experiences, of course it's okay to have feelings, of course it's okay to cry, of course it's okay to be angry, whatever else might be there. But that kind of then brings us around to how that's expressed and worked through. And I'm aware over here, when you're talking, staying with the veterans for a second, the NICE guidelines are that's worked with CBT, or, well, it was EMDR, and that's been taken off. But when you go over to America, the programs over there include the arts. They you know, include the drama, they include all this creative expression. And it's not that we don't do it over here, because we do. And I'm aware, you know, we had a really good touring program, and I can't remember who did it. And it was a group of veterans doing a performance, a drama performance of their experiences. And that was how they therapeutically worked through it. But it's not recognised within our national health system as a therapeutic process.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, there are lots of things that were coming up for me. So, you know, it's like in the antique Greece, when someone was ill, they will look at everything. They will prescribe singing, eating, you know, looking at nutrition. They will dance or whatever it is, the drama. So they will prescribe that, which is what social prescription is about anyway. But I think, again, it's that shift. It's that shift of men need to be like this and women need to be like that. I suppose that it speaks to me very strongly, because I grew up in Spain, which is, there is more pressure. You know, it's the patriarchy, you see it more clearly. I'm starting to doubt that it's stronger than in the UK. The UK is very subtle, but it's still there. But yeah, it was just really, it was a very clear, you know, that this is what men do and this is what women do, but it was very out there. And I had, particularly my father, I was the oldest, well, I am the oldest. And my father always say, you will do whatever you want to do. And in other things, he was actually quite traditional. But the fact that he said that to me, he set up the basis for me not wanting to follow any label ever. It's just like, it's not going to happen. But that's the thing, it's like, why? And it's the language as well, as what you were saying, is the language. So it's the language that you use for men and women. So a woman that is outspoken will be called many different things, but a man could be assertive. Could it be the woman be assertive? And this also comes culturally. If you are assertive, but you're coming from a Latin country, some people will say, you're very feisty.
Yeah.
It's like, how come I'm feisty compared to so-and-so? That, you know, so it's all these added elements. It's like, well, I'm not feisty, I'm very clear. What you see is what you get. I mean, it's not, you know, it's really going a bit deeper to that and really paying attention to what we say, because that really has an impact on how we see our reality and the reality of others. And sometimes we just use words because they're there, you know, not even thinking. And this is where, you know, NCT, like MVT, nonviolent communication and so forth, come into place, and active listening. So there are loads of tools that we can all dip into, but I think we really need to pay attention to that. And it's not coming from a place of, oh, I cannot use that word anymore because of whatever. No, it's coming from a place of wanting to respect the people that you are with.
Yeah.
And coming from that place, even if you say something that is not right, it comes up right, because it doesn't come in an abusive way. It doesn't come in a way that you want to put that person down, but it's the intention. Again, it's that kind of a spiritual level that we are talking about. It's not brainy, it's not body, it's somewhere in between. So it's like, what is the intention when we are speaking? What is the intention when we are doing something? Check on our intention, because that will put everything else right, or at least I think it will give us the opportunity to put things right, because it's the right framework. So if you are coming from a position, well, I want, you know, I really want to talk to you and I'm interested and whatever it is, everything else comes into play. So yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot of work, but
it's loads. But I was also thinking, when you were saying about the language, actually there's even another level to that, which is it's the language we use for ourselves.
yes.
And you know, so of course we want to be respectful of other people and try and get it right. And I'm absolutely with you, I'm going to get it wrong. You know, I'm very aware that I'm a white woman, white British woman. I have a level of privilege and I am going to get it wrong, you know, hands up. But that doesn't mean that I don't stop trying and I don't stop learning. But I think even more so, it's how we refer to ourselves as well. Because if we're not conscious and aware of the language and the thoughts and all the way we talk about ourselves, then trying to have that awareness of how you then interact with others is going to be even more difficult. So it is having that awareness out there.
Yeah. And, you know, and there is time. So it's not like we need to all of a sudden put like 2 hours at the beginning of the day to think about ourselves in the context of the world. But it just really, again, now we are going into a really interesting kind of label. It's being mindful.
Yeah.
It's being mindful, and it's just not being kind of reactionary just because, oh, they told me this because of that. They told you that. Now what? What is your feedback? You know, it's just really understanding those dynamics. And yeah, and some things, you know, reactions are hurtful. But then it's even recognizing that. It was like, ow, that hurt. Why did that hurt? Okay, I understand that. I let it go. Next time that happens, I know, A, that I have an option. I want to react in a particular way or not. You know, it's just really, again, I just want to emphasize that it's not something that you need to do a particular course on meditation for ages or going to a training. It's not that. It's like just thinking. It's that time for ourselves to think about the things that make us happy and the things that are not. Why are we feeling awkward in one particular situation, and why not? And we may not get the answer straight away, but it will come when if we continue with that interrogation, it will come. And if not, we can talk to people, you know, someone that we really trust. Is like, look, I'm in this situation and I don't really know why, but this just feels really weird. And you can just sound it off. Again, you're just talking to the person. I don't want you to give me a solution. I just want to talk out and then see what happens. So it just really, but again, that will mean sometimes creating new rules with the relationships we have, because that is not the norm.
Yeah.
So I will say, you know, if anybody wants to take on any of this stuff that we've been talking about, I would say just one step at a time, whatever feels good.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, it's just using the arts, using gibberish, writing, painting when you need to release, reaching out. There are lots of solutions out there and lots of things that we could do to look after ourselves and others. But being gentle, and again, don't add that rushiness into, right, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do, no, one thing at a time. And it's like everything, we are a system. Absolutely. And we are in a system. So as soon as you change one little thing, that little thing will have a ripple effect in the system. Yeah. And things will start, even if they are tiny, enough to notice, I think, if those changes are starting to be integrated. Yeah.
No, and I think the one thing I just wanted to pick up from what you were saying was, for so many people, it is really tapping into the feeling and knowing what they feel. You know, I think we are getting a lot better with children about naming not just sort of the main half a dozen names, but really starting to dig down. And the question that I love for myself and the clients is also, when am I? So when in my story am I? If I'm feeling this way, am I present today? Is this about the here and now? Is it tapping into my story? And like you said, in the moment, you might not know. It might take time to come out and play out and work through. But I think it's the mindfulness, that self-awareness, whatever the label you want to use is, ultimately it's knowing ourselves as the starting point to then be able to move forward however we do that.
Definitely. And I think that, again, going back to this kind of positive thinking that we were talking about earlier, I think this thing about we can be the change and then everything will come from there, that can be a change. And the change could be someone at work always rubs you off the wrong way. Now you realize that actually it's nothing to do with you, and it's something to do with whatever is going in the life. That situation sorted, evaporates, it changes. It doesn't, it's not like that. That can be it. And from there, all the things. I went to a conference the other day, and there was a doctor there, and he was talking about this relationship that he had with a particular patient. And he always felt that this particular patient was very aggressive and wasn't really listening to him or whatever it is. And then this particular patient started going through an art program. And then the person that was doing the art program talked to the doctor and said, "Oh, isn't he lovely?" And he was like, "Whoa, of all the adjectives that you could use, I wouldn't use lovely." But what happened is that the doctor then started looking for that loveliness when he encountered him.
Yeah.
And he found it because he relaxed. He wasn't triggered when he was coming through the door. It was like, right, is this a fight? So he was looking for that, oh, if someone else has seen that positive in this particular individual, I want to find it. And he did. So that relationship was completely changed. Yeah. And in fact, that really benefited the particular patient because he went on and did all the things. So he felt that he was far more supportive in the doctor's surgery. He was bettering himself. We don't know the impact of that shift, that conversation that we have with someone. If he's coming from a good place, it can be completely life transforming. And it doesn't need to be one of these kind of programs sometimes, oh, my life changed. Yeah, well, your life may have changed just with a tiny little thing.
Yeah.
Just because it's that shift. It could be a song, it could be, it could be anything.
Absolutely. And it's that coming from us. Not expecting anyone else to change, but actually whether it's we change how we show up or whether we change our expectations, whatever it might be. Yeah, ultimately it's that coming from us, and how we get there. Like you said, I know for me personally, coming back to the arts, coming back to the dancing, I know how important for me movement is, dance is. Even to shift myself at the end of the day. When I used to have a bad day, I knew what sort of music I need to put on, whether I needed to quite literally jump around like an idiot to get it out my body. It was going to come out my head because it was coming out my body, but I couldn't just turn my head off.
Yeah.
And it's that because I knew it was there. And if I'd gone into situations without getting it out, I would have responded or actually reacted in a very different way. So we're back to that, us first, and then that ripple effect out.
Yeah. But that's the thing, is that being aware that if we make that change in ourselves, it's going to have a ripple effect.
Yeah.
It's not that if we make a change in ourselves, it's just going to be blocked.
Yeah.
No, it's being aware that that change is going to go elsewhere.
Yeah.
And what is important is that that change is going to be fluid and organic and in tune. And sometimes you may come across standing blocks, but it's like water. If you're in the current and there is a rock, normally the water surrounds the rock. The rock doesn't change, but we may need to be doing a little bit of a skating around, but it will go through. So it may be slightly slower than in the places where there are no rocks, but you go through anyway, if that is your current and that's your way. But again, I think it is coming a little bit of on a theme. It has to come from the right place.
Yeah. For
ourselves first, but also for the people that surround us. And it doesn't need to be so and so. It's just the community or where we live or whatever it is. It has to come from a good place. If it's coming from a bull in a china shop place, you're going to come against obstructions over and over and over again, and it's going to be frustrating because it's a static, it doesn't go anywhere. So mindfulness, movement.
And for me, that good place is heart-led, soul-led, whatever you want to call it. That's mine. Feels like we've gone on a very big journey.
Yeah, I think we touched a lot of topics.
Before we finish, is there anything else that you would like to add or say?
Not really. I think that it has been interesting, the kind of the way, isn't it, on the things that we have talked. It's just an awareness, it's that thing, everything is related and everything is connected because we are a system, in a system. So, it's going to have an impact. So it's useful to remember that when we are not in a very good place, and also when we are in a good place, because it's going to have a ripple effect. And again, it's like that thing of the the action reaction space and no space is just really find that it's like where there is shadow, there is light. It's always the two, and we can choose how long we can stay in both ends. There is that quote from Clarissa. I forget her surname. She's got a double barrel surname, South American lady.
Yeah, I have her book, but it's hidden behind.
Yeah, I've got it upstairs, so I'm not going to go and pick it up. But one of the things that she mentioned, and I think that she borrows from elsewhere, but is that the brighter your light, the bigger your shadow. And that's how it is. And we can all have amazing light, but that is going to come with some shadow. But then we can make it really static, or we can move it, or we can just play around with it. But we have both sides. That's why I like the Brazilian gods and goddesses from the dancing.
We never even touched on that, and therefore I'm really hoping you might come back and have a whole other conversation with me, because part of the work I love to do is divine feminine, sacred masculine, and obviously that's gods, goddesses. But that is a whole other conversation.
Write it down for the next conversation so we don't forget.
I will. On that note, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you very much.